All right. Well, good
You guys
morning,
ready?
everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to get kicked off here. I'm Andy Abner, and I'm the principal at Rock Canyon High School. To give you a little bit more about myself, I've been in Douglas County School District for 16 years. I have three rambunctious little boys that attend feeder schools in the Rock Canyon feeder, and one's actually moving into Rocky Heights Middle School next year. So we're real nervous about that, my wife and I. But it's Douglas County. Douglas County's been home to us for the past 16 years. We moved out from Chicago 16 years ago. Started at Douglas County High School, and then moved into administration. This is my 15th year as a high school administrator, and so I have a lot of history of Douglas County, and I feel like I understand Douglas County really well. And it's certainly the place that we call home and will call home as we raise our three sons all the way through. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Mr. Mike Weaver.
Hi, Michael Weaver, principal at Mountain Vista High School. This is my 15th year in district, 7 years at Mountain Vista. I was the principal at Bear Canyon Elementary prior to that, assistant principal at Summit View Elementary for 2 years prior to that. And like Andy, our kids have grown up in the community. My son just graduated from CU. He was a 2014 graduate of Mountain Vista, attended Mountain Ridge and Summit View. My lovely middle daughter, Emily, just graduated from Mountain Vista, walked across the stage a couple of weeks ago, which was a wonderful, meaningful experience. And then I have my third will be a junior at Mountain Vista next year. And so, like Andy mentioned, not only has our family determined that this is an outstanding place to work, but we've also determined it's an outstanding place to raise our kids. And we are proud to be members of our community. It's odd being a high school principal living in the community that you also work in, but we've accepted that as a part of what's important for our kids and for Mountain Vista and for that community as well. And so that being said, we're fully invested in this thing, and I think part of the reason why a lot of emotion. When we presented to our feeders, there was a lot of emotion involved. There was a lot of really an effort to get people a deep understanding of what we're talking about and to get people involved in this process. So we have more and more people educated and knowing what we're trying to do. And so because it's truly important to us as not only administrators, but as parents.
Absolutely. So we're going to kick right off here. We want to explain a little bit, as we thank you all for being here today. We want to make sure that you understand why we're here, what Mike and I are actually presenting on, and what this presentation is all about. We're talking about financial need versus funding, and really we're here today to make sure that everyone understands what the financial needs are from our perspective, to help you understand what are some of the challenges that we faced and what are the things that we continue to face as high school principals in Douglas County School District. You're going to hear about staffing, you're going to hear about capital challenges, all those things that we faced. Some of you are very familiar with these items, but we want to share it from a principal's perspective. We're not going to be addressing how we get these additional funds. This is a question that our Board of Education must consider. It's not for us to consider. But we wanted to make sure that you understood what we're here today to do is just basically explain our perspective and how financial needs have impacted us over the past several years.
Here's the demographics. It's on the website, the Douglas County website, and I know a lot of people have seen this page. There's some critical pieces to this that kind of lead us into what we're talking about next. We are the largest employer in Douglas County. I believe Charles Schwab is now reached the second place position with about 3,700 current employees. So not only the largest, but the largest by far. We are going to exceed 68,000 kids this year. Denver Public Schools and Jeffco, a little bit larger than us still. But as you look at that, not only geographically, but by number of kids enrolled, definitely a huge operation. There's the breakdown of our schools. Most of you, again, a lot of you know this, but the feeder elementaries with the feeder middle schools and the feeder high schools and charter schools are included in this conversation as well. At our feeder presentations, we got several questions about that. As how does this information impact the charter schools? And so it is an inclusive presentation, and the funding challenges are similar. I don't think that it's lost that we are still doing very, very well. We are around a district-wide 90.4 graduation rate. We both just finished a week and a half ago of graduating some of our best classes ever. Our kids as successful as they've ever been, going to the most amazing institutions and schools and academies. It was really a great, great class. And so the idea of not only excellence in kids graduating, but where they're going and how successful they are after, we had in the district of the 9 high schools and alternatives, we had $82+ million in scholarships in 2017. That was significantly more. This year, it's one of those numbers we throw out at graduation or at courting ceremonies where we're talking about the number of kids who are receiving scholarships. Mountain Vista High School this year exceeded 20 million in scholarships. My only question was, how was Emily Weaver one of the kids that got zero of that money? It doesn't mathematically work, but that's how it goes. So, concurrent enrollment classes, we're saving our community a lot of money. These are dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment classes with ACC, CU, exceed some of the colleges in the area. Based on the money saved of kids that got credit for college classes in our buildings, did not have to pay tuition for those classes, nearly $3 million saved for families. It is a large ship. There's a $680 million budget for our district in trying to make this all happen. We'll get back to this a little bit because sometimes we need to talk about a tipping point, and the success of the district combined with the challenges sometimes is hard for people to understand. But we'll try to get to that in a second.
All right. So what we want to share a little bit is we've had our Board of Education has had some priorities here in 2017-18 school year. So first and foremost was creating comprehensive goals to guide the district in the future, talking about our academics and some of the other needs that we need at our high schools. We're going to go into some of those in a little bit more detail here in a future slide. Hiring a permanent superintendent. Dr. Thomas Tucker has been hired and will be starting in our school district on July 1st, 2018. And then the next piece is addressing district funding challenges and needs. So this is a priority of our Board of Education as well. They understand that they understand this funding and these challenges and these needs very well. And so it's important that they keep this at the forefront as we move forward. Quite frankly, there's nothing more important, as you'll hear from us, as to why as we move forward.
The board has really now looked at what our schools need, and they've started to break down and determine what the end statements for the district need to be moving forward. And they've identified 5 basic areas. Some of these things they've worked on already. We have some completed documents. The others that are in motion as we speak. But these were in no particular order. And in some feedback on the presentation, we kind of put them in a little bit of an order based on kind of where we're approaching this as how this is impacting our schools. And the first one is we truly both philosophically believe that the foundation of why we're so successful is because of those teachers that are in our classrooms with our kids every day. There's a lot of stuff that can go on the fringe, a lot of stuff at the administrative level, but when those kids show up every day, they don't particularly care about all that. They care about what's happening in those classrooms. And so the idea of needing to attract and maintain the greatest teaching staff in the state is critical. And I think it kind of emerges as that number one piece in the challenges that we're facing as schools.
I think when you talk about what is the priority of a principal, what's the priority of us for Mike and I, the number one priority is that we hire great people to work with kids. Not only do we hire great people, but we work to develop those people, to support those people, and to retain those people. And that's where our challenges have come in, and I want to give some specific examples behind that. But there's nothing more important that he and I do than that hiring process and that supporting process and that retaining process. Because as we're doing our administrative work or in a meeting here or a meeting there, those folks are out there with 2,300 kids in our respective schools working with kids, making it happen. And that's where it really makes the difference for our kids. That's where it makes a difference in our community. And so it's important to know that from our perspective, there's nothing more important than the employees that are in our building working with kids. I want to share an example here because I think it's important to understand what we've kind of been through. I could give you several examples over the past several years of teachers that we have lost to neighboring school districts because of finances. Okay, but I want to give you a couple specific examples that hit home right now. I want to talk about one teacher this year who we're losing because of a financial impact. Okay, she is an outstanding chemistry teacher and was basically going to be taking over our AP chemistry program when we have a gentleman who's going to resign a year from now, or retire a year from now is what I should say. And so she was kind of scheduled to take that over and to do all of that. Unfortunately, we've lost her. She's leaving Rock Canyon High School. She's going to Denver North High School. She'll be making $13,000 more a year. And so we're unable to compete. We're unable to hang on to this great teacher. I've had numerous conversations with parents. She used to come in on Saturdays and do these tutoring sessions for chemistry and all this stuff. Numerous conversations with parents about this loss, and they're upset about this. And it's important to note that this is one example of many at Rock Canyon, but many across our school district and all our schools, as I talk to my colleagues and Mike talks to his colleagues. So I also want to explain a little bit about the hiring process, right? So we go through and we post this chemistry position. We go through and we screen things out. What we're really looking for with this position is some experience. We really want someone who's going to be able to move into some experience into this chemistry position. We start losing people as we're making calls, setting up interviews, those with experience. This is a really hard to fill position. We get one person that has experience, and we go through the whole interview process. We make an offer. He's also going through the interview process with Cherry Creek High School. We lose him due to funding issues. Okay, so now what we have coming into Rock Canyon High School next year is a very enthusiastic first-year teacher. And we know he's going to do great. We know he has potential, but we are taking a step backwards in terms of the experience that exists there. And if you don't think that makes a difference on kids, it makes a huge difference on kids. It's very important to the kids that are in the classroom. It makes a huge difference in terms of the rigor and what we're going to be able to offer, because we're going to have someone who has a little bit more of a learning curve, and we have confidence that he's going to be great. However, it's going to take us a little bit of time. And so that's an example of what we see, and that's an example of what we've experienced. That's one example. And as I said, I could give you several, but I don't want to bore you with those details. And I know Mike can give you several, and I know that there's several examples across our school district. So when we talk about what's most important, it's those teachers, hiring them, developing them, and retaining them. And right now we're at a point where we're struggling on the hiring end, and we're struggling on the retaining end, quite frankly. And so that's something that we really need to consider.
I think hiring's taken on a little different feel in the fact that the last several years, it almost has to be a perfect storm. And as we look at the situation saying, okay, we have a science position available, the perfect storm is the timing of the posting. The perfect storm is the candidates that are maybe coming from out of state. The perfect storm is candidates who do know what Douglas County's been through the last few years. The perfect storm is candidates who maybe have a science position open in Littleton or in Cherry Creek. Are they experienced? Do they? It brings on this whole new thing of just saying, hey, we have a posting and we got these 30 great candidates. Let's pick the 8. It becomes this time stressful race to try to find that perfect person that fits all of those criteria that we can then work with HR through to make this thing happen. It's become very, very difficult. So that piece of it has been a struggle. Go ahead.
So student safety and wellness, this is obviously a hot topic across our country right now, and there's a lot of different areas that we consider when we look at student safety and wellness. We as a district have to be able to say that we are doing everything in our power to keep our kids safe and to provide the best wellness options for our kids. That's important. It's a top priority right there with the priority that we just described. Actually, safety of our students is the #1 priority and always will be the #1 priority when we look at this. And so when it comes to financial resources, it takes financial resources to provide the very best for our students. Currently in our schools, I'm allocated at Rock Canyon 2.5 mental health professionals for 2,300 students. We have one student who comes in who's having a meltdown that day. We've just lost one. As you might imagine, there are more than one students who might have a difficult day on any given day. And so that mental health component is extremely important, and it's extremely important that we're able to fund our schools and that we're able to provide mental health in a robust way that's going to be sufficient to meet the needs of our students. That's a little bit on a reactive end as well. And so we'd like to be more proactive with some of the programming that we bring out to our students with mental health. Another thing is we can always use more hands on deck. We can always use more eyes and ears. We can always use more security personnel. And then beyond this, we can always harden our infrastructure. We can always harden our environment. We can make sure that we have the very best technology when it comes to camera, when it comes to the windows, the kiosks, the security kiosks, the tools and the instruments that our security staff needs so that we can do the very best job to keep our schools safe and to keep our campuses safe. So I want to emphasize that this is very important to us. It's very important to us not only here in Douglas County, but I know across our nation. We need to make sure that in Douglas County, though, that we are doing everything in our power to keep our kids safe.
I think in a lot of the meetings that we've had over the last couple of years when crisis situations hit other schools and other states and, the things that make the news, We always talk about hardening schools, money going into. We're allotted 4 security guards for our buildings, 2,320 kids, 14 separate entrances, 4 security guards. We pay for the 5th one out of our own site-based budget because it's not included. And so that becomes a challenge to say we have 5 people. We have 6 counselors for those 2,300. So each of our counselors is working with a caseload of 400 plus kids. And we have 2.8 mental health support in my building because of our enrollment being a little larger. Those people are so spread thin of trying to deal with the stress and anxiety of kids and scheduling and letters of recommendation of when you truly say, we need some crisis intervention for this group of kids, it gets pretty thin pretty quick. And so the wellness of our buildings, when we talk about, well, we've kind of said we prefer to go on the proactive end and say, let's take care of kids from day one all the way through. And so we know the issues these kids are dealing with and we have resources in place to take care of them, rather than let's put bulletproof glass in a kiosk. That becomes a financial commitment on human capital. And right now it's pretty thin. Increasing career and technical opportunities. This is kind of a move. This is kind of a wave, and it's odd for us to talk about it because you go back to that first slide where we're talking about 90.4% graduation rates with 86 or so percent going on to 2 or 4 year colleges. But the business world, the world of technology, how things are happening for kids coming out of school with skills that they can go right into the workforce and make a ton of money and have a great career on day one, it is expanding faster than I think we can realize. I think the tradition of I'm going to go to my 4-year college and I'm going to be the guy, that is kind of rotating to the idea of, yeah, that's okay for some people, but we got kids that are coming out of school ready to go in the workforce, and we have a business community that wants those kids now. And so we're looking to start to expand the opportunities for kids in a vocational situation. We want to look for more internships. We want to look for more apprenticeships for our kids. Within our buildings, we want to provide more options for kids that have them workforce ready the day they graduate. But that's another big step that is very, very costly, and it's a little bit of change in direction for where we've been over the years as a college preparatory type of district.
I think when it comes to career and tech ed too, what we find is that our students aren't able to stay in their school for a lot of the programs that they might be interested in. They might need to travel to Arapahoe Community College or Ponderosa for some automotive coursework, to Thunder Ridge for culinary arts. We have students moving into Rock Canyon High School for the fire science and media programs. Mike has a great engineering production lab that students, will come to from other schools to take those classes. And so we find that our career in tech is kind of spread out. And so sometimes those students that are part of those programs, we might actually even lose them. So there's some students who've come to Rock Canyon, part of our fire science. It just becomes too difficult for them to travel back and forth between schools. And we gain that students, and now they've left their traditional high school and their friends and those things. And so we struggle with that a little bit. We would love to have more in career tech ed options that lead to post-secondary workforce readiness that is certified, where they can go right out into the workforce. When you talk about that 90% graduation rate, that means that there's 10% of our kids. And when you consider that there's over 68,000 students in our school district, we need to have options for all of our students. It's important that every single one of our students leaves ready to tackle their future and whatever their endeavor is going to be. So that's a really important. As we move to our next point here of excellence in student programming, this is where this comes in. I've often considered, if we had, a great deal more resources, where could we take our academic programming? And I think of a program at Rock Canyon High School, our biotechnology program, which started off as a small 1-year biotechnology class and now has developed into a full-fledged level 1 and level 2 research course where our students are actually working with researchers, not only from Colorado and Anschutz and some of our big medical institutions here in the state, but they're actually working with researchers across our nation and internationally. And so that program has been funded through some of our CTE funds and has been allowed to grow because of some of the funding and the resources that exist for that program. And it's allowed these students a second to none education in the world of biotechnology. I would love to see every single area at Rock Canyon High School get to the internship level. I want our students that are in our business programs to be experiencing business internships, computer science, students working with professionals in their field. We can really take our education and academic programming higher. We can push the rigor. and we can push the qualifications and the things that our students will be prepared for in their future with excellence in student programming. We can push that. And there's room to push that, and there's opportunity to push that, but we need to have the resources to do so.
A couple specific examples. When people come to visit our building, we kind of have this path we take them on and show them interested kids, families. We always go to our fabrication lab, to our TSA tech lab. We show them some of the stuff going on in our engineering lab next door. We take them out, and you've maybe seen our freight farm, which is new this year. It's an agro-grow freight farm, and we're putting out more lettuce and basil than anybody could ever eat. So, but in our first year, we put a class out there for next year, and 44 kids signed up for agro-business. And they're going to run this for-profit operation at our building. Well, you look at those are the first two big things that we're like, oh, these are pretty cool. Well, we paid for those completely ourselves. We paid for them out of grants. We paid them out for foundation grants that we wrote, our kids helped write. So our biggest draw programs that we're bringing in and showing people to say, this is something that Mountain Vista High School provides you above and beyond any school in the state of Colorado. It's not coming from our funding from our district. It's coming from us saying we have to have this to remain competitive, but we have to figure out a way to pay for it. And so we need to make sure we kind of enhance that a little bit, because it's working for now, but I don't know how long.
And I think it's important to represent our elementary colleagues and middle school colleagues as well. And we talk about excellence in student programming. As we've seen a decline in budget, we've also seen programs that have been cut. We've seen elementary schools without a technology support, or without a librarian, or without music programs that don't involve before or after school type of commitments for families. And so we've seen these programs leave our schools, and that does impact our bands, our choirs, our orchestras are seeing less and less students that are involved, which make it harder and harder to maintain those programs at the level that they're programmed. And so it's important to know that when we talk about excellence in student program, it's easy for us to pick out a couple CTE and some academic programs that might exist in our school, but it's important to know that the performing arts and the fine arts play a huge role in our students' development in our schools, and that they need to be supported as well.
Capital. Our district's getting older. Andy and I have talked about how we're fairly lucky. He's a little more lucky than I, and our buildings are newer comparatively. It seems like 100 years ago, I remember my brother called me. He was coaching basketball at a school in the Denver area, and I had to be on winter break or something. He called and he said, hey, we got a game tonight. I need someone to keep the scorebook. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, sure. I have nothing going. He goes, brand new place, Highlands Ranch High School. Okay, gave me directions. And I remember driving up County Line Road in the pitch black dark saying, who would put a school here? And it seems like 100 years ago, and now right in the center of what we do, there's Highlands Ranch High School and Ponderosa, and some of these buildings that have been there for years and years. I always use the example of the carpet in my building is supposedly 20-year carpet. It made it about 14, but we won't replace it until it hits its 20 year, because we can't. And if you think about the carpet in your family room, okay, here we are, carpet, 2,300 kids come in every day and walk across it and leave, it won't last 20 years. There's little things like that, but within the infrastructure piece of it, our buildings age quickly because of the use. And if you look at our buildings here in the summer, they don't really take time off. The day that the building closes and everyone goes off for summer, there's 1,000 kids in the building at camps and working in our tech labs and going to cheerleading and all the things that are going on. The other piece is we're still growing, and you can see out here anytime you come to Castle Rock and you go out west to the Meadows, or you go to Parker, or you look at the proposed ideas, Sterling Ranch coming in on the other side of Santa Fe. Thousands and thousands and thousands of homes that will eventually have thousands and thousands of kids that need to go to school. So we really need to focus on that. We need to get ourselves to a point where our buildings are in great shape, and we're building for the future as well. We talked about curb appeal too a little bit earlier.
Curb appeal is really important. So that's one thing that I often talk about at Rock Canyon when we actually have a walkthrough with our building engineer here this afternoon. And as we walk through, what we're really trying to do is to make Rock Canyon stand out and to look amazing, because we want our kids to be proud of where they go to school. When Grandma and Grandpa are in town visiting, I love nothing more when I see a kid taking a family member from out of town, walking around and showing them their school. I think that's so awesome. It's a school that they can be proud of, that they want to bring their family to when they come to. And a lot of times folks, folks from out of town, and they walk into a school like Rock Canyon, they're blown away and they're amazed because we have a great team that takes such good care of this building. So I think it's important that kids are proud where they go to school, proud of where they go to school. So how are schools funded? So this is, we're kind of getting into, I guess you'd say, the meat and potatoes behind some of the budget stuff. And it's important to understand this, and it's important that we all understand how schools are funded, because I think this is where the most misinformation sits within the community. I can think of one of my neighbors, Tom, who's on the swim team, and he comes up to me last summer and he's like, what do you mean you need more funding? My property value is going up. I'm paying more in taxes. Douglas County should be doing great with all of these property taxes rising and all of this thing happening. That's not the truth. And so the truth is that, Mike, can you go and clear all those for me? Thank you. So, yes, please. And so the truth is that when the 1994 School Finance Act came about, basically what that does is that requires the state of Colorado to set one rate, a per pupil rate, for every single school district in the state of Colorado. We have a fixed funding rate, as you see here by the bar graph, at $7,389. So that fixed funding rate right there currently will not go up. It goes up each year as legislation decides to give more money or maintain funding or whatever they decide each year. It can shift that way. But right now, $7,389 per pupil is what we have received up until this point in Douglas County. And so there's 2 points of revenue within that number. Okay, and the first one is the local share. And when I said before, my neighbor Tom, when he talked to me about how his taxes are going up, that local share may go up. And so you can see right now it hovers in the $2,500 range. It could go up if taxes go up. It could go up to $3,000. But all that means is that the state portion, which you see in the green portion right there, is going to go down. Douglas County School District is not going to receive more money because our property values go up. They're going to receive that fixed number. And it's important to know that. It's important that we can speak to that and that we can share that with our neighbors and our community members, because a lot of people have the perception that when our local share goes up or when our taxes go up, that the school district's receiving more money. And that's not the case.
And for various reasons, if you look at when you look at your mortgage statement, there's going to be that DCSD taxation and the state taxation listed somewhere on there. With this in mind, I went back and looked at my local share that I was contributing every 6 months. And from December of 2016 to December of 2017, it went down about $171. And so when my share, I'm not contributing as much, the state might have to kick in a little bit more. But if it does go up, and that'll show up here too in the next piece as well. So now, as you can see here, this is again one of the misnomers of depending on where you live and what's going on. But that 1994, the School Finance Act says every kid between that combined fixed rate of state and local share will get basically the same amount of money. So as you can see, here's Boulder, Cherry Creek, Littleton, all of our nearby competitors. And at the $7,389 level, every kid in each one of those school districts on this funding model gets the same amount. The state can say we have an equitable system. Everybody that goes to school in the state of Colorado will get that amount right there. And if they're paying more in property taxes, the state pays less. If they drop, the state will pay more. This will happen a lot of times in districts that don't have a lot of income. They're struggling. The state will have to kick in a lot more money to support those kids at that same level. Okay? Now, here's where we start talking about this mill levy override thing. The only way that you can get this number higher in your school district is if your voters in your school district vote to add a mill. They add mills and do an override of that. So you in your direct school district are contributing more money right to your schools by vote. You're saying yes. We have not passed one of those for a number of years, as most of you know. Other districts have. So you start looking at this idea that each district can request up to 25% more. Cherry Creek, actually, I can't believe we may get help on this in clarifying. They passed in their last election not only a mill levy override, they passed a agreement that anytime the school district wanted to ask up to their 25%, it was okay with their voters. And they said yes. So they don't even have to go to the voters anymore. until they hit that 25%, and then they'll work from there. They can just do it because their community said, go.
Sure. So the bottom graph basically shows our mill levy override tax rates, and you can see where our tax rates lie with our neighbors. And so you can see that there's been additional taxes approved in some of these other school districts, and you can see that we're less than double from our nearest one, which is Jefferson County here. And so in large respects, we're doing really good as a county in terms of our tax rate. However, our schools are starting to hit that tipping point that Mike was talking about earlier.
And we'll kind of bring this number in a little bit here, but this mill that this is kind of our operating expense money for the district. This is where all our pay, all of our increases, all of our operating expenses, all of our capital needs is coming out of the contribution of our taxpayers for the most part. By law, that is at $33 million. So every year we get $33 million new dollars to run this show. And we'll get back to that in a second. Some of these, obviously they've gone mills higher. They're making a lot of income. Their property values are different, and so there's adjustments you need to make. But we'll kind of get to that. This is 2008, as you can see on the graph. Here is the number of mill levy override per pupil. So this is money in addition to the $7,389 that comes from the fixed share. Does that make sense? So everybody in 2008 was kind of in this ballpark. You can see that some of our local, I don't want to say rivals, but people that live near us, neighboring districts, thank you, they were receiving a little more based on what their mill levy override to that point was. So we were getting around $520 some additional per kid based on our mills that our voters had approved. So as we go to these election cycles, 2010, these are when other districts would have a mill levy override show up on their ballots and when they would pass them. So you can see on the years that each of these districts, Boulder Valley just going crazy here. Okay, we usually like to look at Cherry Creek just because of their proximity and the competitive level that we are. The component of this is we have not added to that additional funding. So where the graph before with the blue with the red on top of and all the districts, we have no additional red other than this same additional red we had 11 years ago. So a couple things start to happen there. Here's the percentage of increase, and I'll turn it over to Andy here in a second. But Cherry Creek has increased their mill levy income for their district 76% in those 11 years. We have dropped 14%. Boulder has raised theirs 142%. And the equity of the system starts to impact us.
Yeah, and so this is where the rubber really meets the road. Here's two really important facts for you to consider. That Cherry Creek right now is receiving over $1,600 more per student than Douglas County School District. What does that mean? That means based on our population of students, that Cherry Creek is basically funded $100 million more than Douglas County School District. And so it's important to keep that in mind. How does that equate to teacher salaries? You can see it right here with our Colorado Department of Education information. This is data from 2016. So right now, our average annual teacher salary is $17,000 less than Cherry Creek and $13,000 less than Littleton Public Schools. Those numbers are in direct alignment to the story that I told earlier. You can hear those numbers kind of come out in that story. And so that's where we struggle to hang on to those teachers. So what does $100 million more annually mean for a district like Cherry Creek or for Douglas County School District? When you consider that it takes approximately $3.2 million to give our staff across Douglas County a 1% raise, then what this means is that Cherry Creek can fund their employees at 30% higher rate than we can in Douglas County School District, and that's significant. And when it comes to folks who have to provide for their families and put food on the table, that makes a big difference. And I have had so many conversations. I've had tears in my office where people are sitting there telling me that they don't want to leave Rock Canyon, that they love Rock Canyon, they love where they're at, but they have to be able to provide for their family. And quite frankly, I'm tired of those conversations. As not only as principal, but as a dad whose kids will go to Rock Canyon someday, I want them to have those teachers. And I've been really upset that we've lost some teachers who I see my boys in their class someday.
And this is annual. This is every year.
Microphone.
We're capped at that.
Microphone.
We're capped at that $33 million every year. So here comes the money coming in other districts. They are at $100 million as a basic number, more than us every single year. and we're doing everything we can out of that 33 million operating expense budget, including salary, including benefits, including capital. So the gap is getting larger every day. Well, we skipped something. Capital's more like a mortgage. It's like when you say, hey, we need to build something, we need to take out a loan. You take out, you go for a bond. So that's different than the mill levy override, which is then that ongoing. You ask for, we need money to build stuff or fix things. There's Ponderosa High School, built in 1983. Mr. Wells, proud graduate. This is a boiler somewhere. We came in after 3-day weekend in Mountain Vista this year, and at some point on Friday evening before the 3-day weekend, the average temperature was around 18 degrees that week. We had a couple of connectors in a boiler go out. And we came in, and the building was at about 30 degrees. So we started school, and we used the, hey, kids, suck it up and put a jacket on theory. But we got more calls on kids getting hypothermia at school than we did anything. But, when we go to fix that thing, however much it would cost, I don't even know what it ended up costing, it comes out of that operating budget. If this is a roof at Pine Lane Elementary School, I think if you have to replace that roof, it comes out of that $33 million operating expense. It then cuts into the amount of money that we can pay our teachers. It cuts into the amount of programming we have. I'll go to this and let Andy go to this piece, but like that previous graph, here we go with Cherry Creek, Little Jeffco. These are their bond proposals that they put on the ballot over the last 10 or 11 years. Cherry Creek has passed 3 different bonds in the neighborhood of $660 million of capital. You look at this and say, oh, that's puny for Littleton, but that's $80 million of things.
For a district one-third the size of
for a district with 2 high schools, okay? You look at Jeffco, they got a bunch of schools, but they passed $110 million. And in one fell swoop in 2014, Boulder passed a $660 million bond. They have a savings account sitting there to fix things of $660 million. And we in the last 12 years have 0. So we go to our annual $33 million little fund to help pay teachers, to help pay broken, boilers, to all those things. Again, the gap is getting much greater.
But we have some folks that have actually run the numbers on this, and what you'll see is that there's $205 to $269 million that's needed to catch up in our school district, to pay for things that need to be replaced, to fix things, to replace things. That's the amount needed to catch up. We have another $25 to $30 million annual expenses to keep up. And so that's what we're looking at. And so when we don't have this money that Mike speaks of, when we have a 0 there, what happens is that cuts into the general fund. When that cuts into the general fund, ultimately it cuts into the money that we would have to provide those big 5 boxes around there, money towards our safety and security, money towards educational excellence, towards hiring, retaining the very best staff. It impacts all of that right here. And then we also have a $107 million estimate of new construction in the next, 5 years, which Mike spoke to in some of that new building that's going around here and how we're going to have new students coming to us. So this impacts us all greatly. And the way that I've explained that with the Rock Canyon community is that, yes, we have a beautiful school. We have a great place where kids get to come to learn every single day. However, these things are impacted by the fact that there are capital expenses in our school district. That budget impacts every single one of us.
If you've ever been to a high school basketball game recently, the kids stand up and they jump and they yell and they jump and they yell at the Rock Canyon kids and they jump. About 3 years ago, we started having some issues with our original wood bleachers in the gym at Mountain Vista. So we started calling in and saying, hey, we got some broken parts and some pieces and things. And so they came in and they blamed it on us not making our kids sit down at the basketball game, which, probably not going to happen. So, doing what they could after basically every home game, O&M would come out and they'd try to build supports in under the bleachers where the kids were standing and jumping because they were starting to break. So if you go and look under that first or second or third row where the kids are really vigorous about what's going on, there's 2x4 blocks screwed in under each of the support joints all the way across these things. Last year we had a couple of them break. And so they brought in replacement seats from other bleachers from somewhere. It looked like from an original Catholic school of the 20s, and they screw those in. So last year they condemned them. because they said these are not sound anymore. You got to get through the school year and try to keep your kids from not jumping up and down. Well, when we're in the gym against Rock Canyon or Thunder Ridge, you don't even bother to say that to the kids. So this summer, starting next week, they're tearing our bleachers out. But what makes it hard is when you have people saying, well, you're getting brand new bleachers in your gym. Well, yeah, but you know, it's a $100,000 expense that we had to dig and scrape and beg for. And we've put kids in dangerous situations for 3 years in this. They've been condemned. We can't do anything in the gym again ever until we get new bleachers. But people see, oh, new bleachers. You want me to increase my taxes so your kids can jump on new plastic instead of old wood? It's a hard thing to explain, and you don't really have the time or effort to explain it in depth to everybody. But it is in crisis mode, and I think the basics of it is the more times we have to do things like that to keep our buildings functioning, the more impact it has on those previous slides of what we're trying to do with our staff. So, as we wrap this up, and there's slides on here from some, I don't know if we should show Rock Canyon. You will show a Rock Canyon kid. Got the wrong color robe on. But, as we go into this process of saying, my gosh, it's got to be done, it's hard because of our success. It's hard because of how well we've done. It's hard because our communities see things that we're doing that are 10 years behind in the queue on capital expenditures. It's hard when, they make a determination about how hard teachers work. It's hard when it adds on to say, but it's at point critical right now. There's always that tipping point of when you reach a spot where, I don't care who it is, our greatest teachers, our most committed teachers, thousands and thousands of dollars a year or $1,000 more a month for a young family is huge. And to be able to say, like Andy said, we consistently are having teachers say, I don't want to go. I love it here. I love these kids, but. And it's a tough situation to be in. And I think whether it be our buildings, whether it be our personnel, whether it be what we're doing to try to maintain and retain and keep and hire, we are at that tipping point. And, we appreciate the district giving us the opportunity to say for at least a couple months, go out and spread this word and try to educate your communities on what this really looks like. But boy, it's a small percentage of taxpayers we're hitting in these type of things. So hopefully, as we go about it, it is truly an investment in this community. I think we're at the point where we can say, yeah, we can probably keep scraping by and have the success we've had, but it feels different right now. It feels at a critical point in buildings of saying, I don't see how it can continue to go up and improve and provide what we're providing for kids at the level we're currently at. Something different has to happen.
So as we wrap up, one thing we want to do is we want to ask for everyone's help. We want to ask for all of your help. If you're watching this video, we want to ask for your help. If you go to the Douglas County School District webpage, there's information on this. The presentation that you've seen today is there. You're welcome to reach directly out to Mike and I. We'd be happy to try to present to any community organization, as would a lot of our colleagues. If you want us to try to present or meet with your HOA or meet with some other groups in the community, we're happy to do that because we're passionate about this. If you go to the Rock Canyon High School webpage, you can actually find a spot where you can click a link and sign up and put your name on a volunteer list. That doesn't volunteer you to do anything. All it does is say, I'm interested in spreading the word. We will reach out in a way and hopefully find something that you might be comfortable with as we move forward and as we seek to educate our community on this very important topic. So we need your help. We can't do this alone. We're two parents. We're two principals in this community. And we're certainly going to talk about this with everybody when we get every chance. However, we need your help to do that as well. And so hopefully we've given you some compelling reasons to be able to support financial funding and a greater financial funding in our schools. Our kids definitely deserve it. As Mike said before, we're coming off of graduation a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And there's nothing more satisfying than talking to those kids about their future plans. They're our hope. They're our future. They're the future of our community. And so anything that you guys could do to take care of the future of our community, I would certainly be grateful, and I know that many people in this community would. So thank you guys for being here. We're happy to take any questions at this point, and I know Stacy has a sign-up sheet for those of you that attended today.
And if there's questions, go ahead, say something. Sorry.
volunteer sheet going around for this group here too.
And, you know, we're certainly not, and you maybe saw that a little bit, we're certainly not financial experts in all of this stuff or in-depth policy experts. So if there's questions out there, we could try to direct you to the right people to answer those. But I think you can also kind of picture those neighbors of yours or the person sitting across you at the bunco table or who you're over by the pool with, that you need to at least have a fact or two that you're able to say, hey, but wait. And so hopefully some information from this will help that. And there's a lot of info out there, like we said on the website. So start spreading the word. It's going to be important. And I don't know if we can blame complacency on individuals' parts over the last few years of why these things haven't gone, or we're taking it for granted that, oh, you know, we got all these families in Douglas County. Well, it's not like that. We're going to have to do some work. And so we appreciate you guys listening to us. I know a lot of you have heard this presentation before, but hopefully there's some things in there that you can take away, and hopefully people will watch this and understand there's a lot that individuals can do, and we need to kind of get on it right now. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Want to take questions? I saw there might be some questions out there. I don't know if there's any questions. Going once, going twice. Your email box is filling up. We understand. Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you guys very much.
We'll hang around if you want to talk.